Well, there you have it. The toss decision vindicated. They decided in the morning that they were going to, or late in the evening, it feels like the morning, they decided to put the opposition into bat and chase. They had not done it all tournament long, and they did it successfully on what looked like not the greatest surface to bat on. So, full credit to the men from Punjab, ousting the defending champions in some style, that too, by 9 wickets with plenty of balls to spare. 131 for 6. You'd have to say Mumbai laboured to that score, and Punjab were very strategic in their run chase and got there with the captain Rahul leading the way, 60 not out of 52, and a very uncharacteristic innings from Chris Gayle for the most part. Towards the end, we saw Chris Gayle of old. Here we are on Cricbuzz Live, brought to you in association with our fantasy partners, My 11 Circle, in the company of Shaun, Pollock and Pommie Mbangwa. Pommie, obviously full credit to Captain Rahul, but we sort of chatted about Chris Gayle, a very different sort of Chris Gayle, but the kind they needed today, and he came to a very different sort of party.
Yeah, you don't buy experience in a supermarket, so the saying goes, and he's an experienced player. Probably, actually, as I think about it now, it comes to me probably the greatest 2020 player ever. You know, he's been playing for a long, long time. And come this situation, he knew exactly what it is and what it was that was required by his side and executed. At the beginning, you saw him not trying to take the ball on or take the boundary riders on. When there was nobody there, he'd try and hit it in the gap, even when he was going for boundaries. So it really was a percentage sort of inning. And how many times would you see a Chris Gayle playing sort of lap or sweep shots? He doesn't do it. But because this is a slow surface, instead of going against it or fighting against it, seemed to go with it and use all of his experience to just hang in there. Never mind that he's facing dot balls. He knew that the pressure would shift, actually, and the pressure was all on the bowling side, who only had 131 on the board, to make sure they didn't bowl any bad deliveries. It was a masterful innings, I think, and really good to see that there's an adjustment from not a case of this is how I play and so I'm going to do it like this, never mind what's on offer in terms of conditions, but a respecting of those and working according to them.
How would you classify that victory, Shaun? I mean, obviously, it was so dominating 24 hours ago from Bangalore, but a tactical win from Punjab over Mumbai?
Yeah, I think it was a tactical win. I think it was really good adjustment on their behalf, being able to deal with the scenarios that were put in front of them. I think good to get ahead of the rate at the start, just gave them some time. I think, in all honesty, I mean, there was one point there where I think Chris was maybe, 4 or 5 off about 11 balls. And unfortunately, if he had got out then, I mean, he would have had to take it on the chin, as really putting his team under some pressure, because he had absorbed. The other problem from, it's not his kind of surface. Why? First of all, because it's ball not coming on, you can't just whack it out the ground. But secondly, at this stage of his career, running the singles is not real strength of his. So he battles to rotate the strike and also to pick up the quick singles. So there was a cracks moment. I was watching going, he's going to pull the trigger here. He has to at some stage. It's going to become a big over. And he actually went, I'm trying to think who was bowling. I think it was the off spinner. Yeah, he went at him and he dragged one across to the leg side, and it was a couple of bounces squirted in between. And that was the lucky break that he required. And then not long after that, he hit one out the ground. And then he was up with the rate and he was able to negotiate it brilliantly. He adjusted the way he played. He jumped onto off stump, and as Pommie said, it's not really it's his version of a sweep shot, but it's like a paddle half sweep thing around the corner. and he did it brilliantly. And the key point that Pommie makes there is, with all that experience, is often the fact of hold your nerve, hold your nerve, hold your nerve. He who panics first often is the one who ends up on the losing side. And he didn't panic. And 90% of people in the RPL, batting-wise, no matter how much experience, probably would have gone, oh, I'm messing this up for the team. Whack, up in the air, gone. But he didn't. He held that nerve. And I think that was the impressive part. I must admit, I think the bowlers, the spinners, Tim in particular, were brilliant with some of their lengths. I think Krunal Pandya may be the only one who's the exception. But Chahar and And Yadav, yeah, he was brilliant. I mean, they gave him nothing. There was no air, nothing that he could get underneath. It was flat and it was accurate, and the pace was just perfect. And it really, really was difficult for Chris to get going, and KO Rahul, who's a good player of spin. So I think they tried everything they could, Mumbai, but for a few things, even Bumrah's adjustment to his cutters at the back end there, sure, he looked lethal. I would have hated to see Al Kumbli on that kind of wicket, with tall and get the split like that. But yeah, credit to them, brave call to put a team in on that kind of surface. And, all you can do as a team is back it up with the way you bowl first up, and then knock off the score with the way they did. And they held their nerve. So congrats to them. I mean, if they'd lost that, they still sit bottom of the table in some real trouble. So I don't think don't underestimate how important a game that is for them.
Yeah, and I tell you what, as well, whilst we're on the batting and the adjustment, there's a little backstory, isn't there? And we referred to it in their previous game, where they lengthened this batting order and were trying to address the story of a strike rate. And the person who would have taken it on the chin, even though it wasn't out there, we were out here saying it, but it wasn't out there, they would have addressed it in their own meetings. The fact that he faced 51 balls in the game and he got 70, that it's not enough on a good surface. And then they end up on the losing side. Now, first game, they turn up there, they try and sort that story out, a story of strike rate on a pitch where striking at 100, 110, 115 is actually winning your side the game. And it goes pear-shaped. And then he comes again this time, and he too, at one end, held it together, didn't he? His half century held everything together. It meant everyone could then just kind of go along. When it was time to attack, which was up front, it did that. They got ahead of the game. As Shaun had said, that probably would have been the way to go, and the way they'd have looked at it with the ball still hard and new and fielders in the circle. And once they'd done that, it was very much percentage and don't worry, just go along and go along and go along. And saw them home in the end. A really good effort, especially after that brave call of batting second.
It was, because Rohit Sharma acknowledged that it was not the worst surface. He said not enough runs. I still feel it's not a bad wicket to bat on. So obviously the introspection in that camp was we should have got 160. If you get 150, 160 on this wicket, then you're always in this game. And I reckon that's the kind of total they had in mind. No unreasonable expectations. But obviously, they lost their way trying to even get to that kind of a total, Shaun. Just your thoughts on what would be said in that dressing room right now. You've been there before. More often than not, it's a winning dressing room. When you come up on a day like this, what happens in there?
Yeah, I think there were a lot of things that did right, to be honest. Particularly some of the tactics used. I think Rohit was really good at who he got on at the right times. I think they'll be a little bit disappointed. Sometimes it's game plan, sometimes it's just skills and talents, and sometimes it's application. I think application-wise, not as good as they could have been today, Mumbai. With the bat, as well as some of the boundary fielding, some of the options of some of the bowlers wasn't ideal. But and when you're defending a score like that, you have to have things run for you. And I think they tried everything they could in order to try and apply pressure. I mean, there was one spell there, 9 dot balls out of 10 deliveries, and the other one disappeared out the ground. So even at that back end, they're still managing to squeeze. But things had to go according to plan. They had to keep picking up the wickets, because it's the key on those kind of surfaces. New batters at the crease, those are the ones who struggle.
Another interesting point on the batting, since we're talking about Mumbai's batting in this case, Rohit feels, and obviously this is what they've got to introspect as they get on that plane to Delhi, Rohit feels that there's something missing in our batting lineup. We're not able to bat 20 overs in the fashion we want, and something that we have to look at. Pommie, what is it do you think he's talking about? What is missing in this Mumbai batting lineup? Is it the form of Quinton de Kock, maybe?
Probably. I was going to, the thing that came to mind is some sort of platform, because when you think about the way that the Mumbai Indians bat, and the way they generally go about things, is they get some sort of platform, and if they do, then either they bat you out the game, or they resurrect sufficiently to kind of bat themselves into the game, sort of a score that is Yeah, 160, 170 on there, probably 140, 150, maybe even touching 160 if they get some sort of platform. If you look at the way they went, what were they in the first six? 21, I think it was.
21.
It's
their second lowest power play ever.
Yeah, it's just not enough. And so when you look back, if you're 21 for 1 after 6 overs, when you look back, and it's hindsight, I know, but when they look back, they'll say, we have to be taking more of a risk in that area. Now, if it was 21 for 1 with shots played all over the place, that's entirely different. But it's 21 for 1 with a kind of circumspect way of going, and then you end up with 131. So there's not enough risk taken, particularly with how long their batting lineup is. They have to attack that. And yes, it's tempered because it's in Chennai, but you still have to take a bit more of a risk when you're starting up front so that it's not so much to do at the back end.
Yeah, they'd be
what I'd like to add to that is, I mean, I think too the key is the two left-handers. I mean, often people talk about left-handed, right-handed combinations. The two left-handers at the crease haven't been firing. So often when they do, you get your extra bad deliveries because guys are adjusting lines and maybe making mistakes. And then to have 3 of the top 6 basically not firing, so add Hardik Pandya, Ishan Kishan and Quinton de Kock. I think that's always been Mumbai's strength. They've always had 4, maybe 5 of their top 6 in top gear. And that's the key to the tournament. The more you keep your guys in form, of the top 6 in particular, is where you win the game. So I think they will be loving a change of scenery, those 3 in particular. Get to the nets in Delhi, have the ball skidding on, even if it comes through lower, as it often does there in Delhi. At least it's going to be coming on a little bit more, not stopping and standing up. And then Mumbai will be hoping that they get back to their best. But yeah, it hasn't been as ruthless, and definitely down to the surface, but then also those 3 individuals who have been struggling.
Anything you could spot, Shaun, with Quinton de Kock? He obviously came in late. He had somebody, an able replacement in Chris Lynn, who didn't exactly do badly in the chance that he did get. So what does Quinton now need to do?
Yeah, I think the real challenge, it's probably the first time in his career that he's really had a lean trot for a long period of time. I mean, I remember the game that they'd played here in South Africa, the Pakistan game. I think he got 80-odd. Which was his highest score basically in the last 14 months. He hasn't got 100 in that time, and just the 350s. And the other highest one was one score of 80-odd for Mumbai Indians in the RPL. So it has been a bit of a lean trot for him. And, you know, in many ways, uncharted territory. And certain things, if you think of the nature of the individual and how he plays, his bat comes up here, he whacks it square either side. He does need the ball coming on. So having a slower surface for 5 of the games or 4 of the games that he's played doesn't help, particularly when you feel a little bit iffy about how you're playing at that moment. So he's one of those guys who can cut loose. I mean, we know that, and it often is just a catalyst innings of one fantastic knock where he whips a couple of boundaries and he's A for away. But it is going to be a difficult period for him. And we all go through them, every single one of us. And unfortunately for him, it's come at this time when he wants to be cutting loose.
Well, it's several things that they have to address. Do Mumbai, Hardik Pandya, Ishan Kishan, and of course Quinton de Kock. Rohit's talked about that, and I'm sure they'll go and address that as they get a few days off. 6 games in terms of a gap till they play their next one in Delhi. What does this mean to the points table? Remember, they were wanting to get on that flight, being 3 out of 5. Instead, they're going to be 2 out of 5. And in a mid-table position on 4 points, along with the team who beat them today. Punjab have sneaked up just behind them, slightly behind on net run rate on 4, and Bangalore, Chennai and Delhi continue to be the men on top with 8, 6 and 6 respectively. So still possibly early days to think of a bottom position being a panic position or a top position being a winning position, but nonetheless, it's points on the board with this particular leg over for Mumbai. Going ahead to what we have in store for you, and we head back to a batting surface that is to the liking of, would be to the liking of these Mumbai boys, but they're not there. It's going to be Rajasthan and Kolkata, and this should be quite a cracker to look forward to. We, of course, will all be here. Pommie, you're going to be out there in the thick of the action, are you?
Yes, we shall be there tomorrow, and I look forward to it. It's a couple of sides that are sort of in need of a win, in need of something to sort of go right, a game that can go totally right all the way through. I mean, all the way through the tournament, it's, some sides search as they go along. Even if it's, early in the tournament like this, if they can just get over the line somehow, it's all good. Rajasthan, you see how they've gone there, one win in 4. And I mean, those are not, they're no good losses, but their losses have been quite bad, really. Won by 10, then lost by 10 for Kolkata, lost by 38, and even that lost by 18 is a close loss where, you kind of, you look at all these games, you think, well, could they have done that little bit better? Could they? And they're also a side that are searching and different areas going wrong. You're trusting in the middle order, trusting in your bowling, trusting at the top things are going okay. So something, plugging holes all over the place. So both these sides, I think, are searching, and it's a good thing that they have a shootout. One of them at the end of it is happier, has fixed a few things, and they move on, and perhaps the tournament kicks on for them.
Yeah, it's going to be quite a quick turnaround for Rajasthan, Shaun. They've just played, and they're going to be playing again with the day's gap. So maybe not enough time for them to think too much. Maybe that's a good thing for them, for a team that has so many problems off the field, with Jofra Archer being the latest absolute confirmation.
Yeah, we thought he wasn't going to come, but as you say, the confirmation came through today. Yeah, you're quite correct. I mean, the quicker you turn those around when you've had a big defeat like that, sometimes the better. Get back on the horse and off you go. But I think it's going to continue to be a challenge for them. I really feel that Kolkata, with that back-end performance in their batting, I think it might have unleashed a bit of a giant, particularly on that Mumbai surface. So, someone like a Dre Russ, if he comes in and decides to just play like he did, I mean, what was it? The second delivery, he just went after, whacked it away, and he didn't stop. He went from 0 to 1 for the first delivery, and then into 6th gear, and just stayed there for the rest. And then also what you saw, Kartik started to play nasty, even Cummins at the back end there. So, yeah, I think they've still got their work cut out to them. I think there's not too much wrong with some of the bowling of Kolkata. They would have had or be better for the outing, having played one game there. I think they'll be better in their plans and their bowling department.
Let's have a look at the squads, actually, and we can keep that thought going. Let's have a look at the squads and see if we foresee any possible changes going ahead for this game. We'll start with the men in purple. One person we haven't seen yet in action is Kuldeep Yadav. We've had a bit of rotation. Finally saw Suril Narayan coming in, Shakib Al Hasan sitting out. They've got options. Unlike Bangalore, unlike Rajasthan, they do have options. Pommie, any need for any changes here?
Yeah, look, I don't think so. I mean, I think they're okay. I think Narayan went okay-ish. I mean, he came into the attack and bowled all right. I mean, we've also got to pay attention to the fact that it's a high-scoring ground. Many times you might sit there and you'll go, you went for 220, so we're going to change all the bowlers. We're going to change in the bowling department. And have a look at who we can get in there that will get wickets or will be more economical. I don't think they really need to do that. I think many teams need to try and ensure that they get themselves settled and get guys understanding what the job is and to decide on how it is they can be most effective on a surface. I think you almost have to pick a side for your conditions you're going to and stick with that side to know that they're going to do better in more games than they'll do badly. So if you got 4 games at Mumbai and you pick a Pat Cummins, I'm using him, he's generally always going to play. You don't want him to play one game, you take him out, and then you play somebody else, and then in the third game you put him back again. So he's starting again each time. You want a scenario where you back your guys and you change with very little. When you go to the next place, if you believe somebody else is better for that place, then you go with that guy as well. And I think it just kind of clarifies things for guys. I'm thinking also of a young guy like Nagra Koti, who was into the side. I hope he does get another game tomorrow.
On batting order, I know it's been very settled with the youngsters up front with Gill and Nitish Rana and Rahul Tripathi. That's the 1, 2, 3 they've been working with, and they've kept consistent. But now that you've brought Sunil Narayan in, I mean, either number 4, 5 or number 7, 8, as far as just my opinion, Shaun, he needs to go out there, even if he gives you 10 of 2, 20 of 10. That's his only place to bat, isn't it?
It is. I think it is an option. I think it's a decent option, but I tend to look at it as an option on a wicket that maybe is a little bit iffy. On the Mumbai surface, the ball's coming on nasty. Those guys at the top of the order, in all honesty, Nareen's probably there's one area where they look to attack him was on the short pitch deliveries. How will he go there? Maybe have him floating, like they did in the last game. He came in and got out quickly. But I think at the top, I think there's enough pace on the ball there that those young guys, Rain has been in great touch. Gill, I think he's a class player. So, I wouldn't touch them. I would leave it. I would have maybe Nareen as a floater on this surface. If you get to something lower and slower and you want to try and get off to a fast start, then maybe it's a good option.
Yep. Well, we'll move on to the opposition who have some personnel problems. Kolkata may have problems of choice, but the men in pink versus purple, not too different from each other, down to a squad of 21, only 5 with an aeroplane next to them. And that basically limits their choices. Miller's playing, Butler's playing, Morris is playing, Mustafizur is playing. The only other option they have is Andrew Tye. Now, does he work for you as an option on that Mumbai surface, Pommie?
If they were playing in Chennai, I'd say you want him to play because he's very good with those slower balls and he's got many variations which take pace off. In terms of playing at Mumbai, I don't know that he brings enough. I think I'd probably go more with Mustafizur because left arm, and he also has a few slow balls, but I would go with him just for that angle particularly. And he's played a few games, he's kind of trying to get into a groove. Morris, you kind of need to play him, it lengthens your batting, and Tye is not competing with the other two. So if he's not getting in ahead of Mustafizur or Morris, if you're thinking of shifting the ball and then he's not getting in, I think he's just going to have to bide his time and sort of wait and see if Mustafizur doesn't go so well in a couple of games in a row. Maybe then he gets a chance. But no, I don't think Tye is coming into the side as far as I'm concerned.
2 more quick names. One is Kartik Tyagi. We saw, among the youngsters, we saw Bishnoi play today. And another possibility purely from the home ground situation. We saw how good Shivam Dubey was, loves playing at his home ground. Yashasvi Jaiswal, he's grown up playing cricket in and around that place. Was there last season, did perform decently enough. Do you think something up the order?
Yeah, they can. I mean, the problem is in this situation when they're so much on the back foot, the more changes you make, it almost makes it more unsettled. You need to try and stick with your individuals and see what they can do. Jadav and Natkat, I would definitely consider getting back. Tye for me maybe plays because you've got the 3 left armers and maybe you want something different. I'd get a Natkat back and I'd have a word with Morris. I think his bowling wise, he's better than what we've seen from him so far. I think he needs to stand up now for that team. Just from a bowling side, we've seen a few decent smacking efforts at the back end, but bowling wise, he's a big, tall guy. He's going to extract a lot of bounce. And I think he can show better control. Control's never been his massive strength, but I definitely think he's better than that. So I'm looking forward to a better performance from him.
Yes, we certainly are. But just going back on KL Rahul, obviously man of the match, winning captain, be delighted with his own form and awards today. He did mention that dew was one of the factors of why he decided to bowl first, but don't want to get too ahead of ourselves. Slowly coming together as a team. The guys we have backed are coming through. Bishnoi came back together, and the way he bowled was brilliant. I felt that dew could play a part. The drier ball started to grip. When it turns, it gets hard. It was good of Chris that he got through that particular period. So identified key areas did KL Rahul. The dew, Bishnoi, Chris Gale, well summed up for me.
Yeah, and you know what? You make a decision and you've got to back the decision up. And that's why many a time we sit, 80 yards away, or in this case 8,000 kilometers away, and you're trying to work out exactly why a guy would go that way in a situation like this. And he sums it up quite nicely. It's still, as I say, it's still brave because of the history of what's gone on the ground. What I will say, which I think all of us were on the same page with, was the selection of Bishnoi was exactly right. And we're talking about the pace that he bowls at and the difficulty to then get him away if he's bowling on that Chennai wicket. And it proved to be so. Also, that he can bowl right up at the front if you want him to. This time around, they didn't go with him. They kept him for a bit later, and they went with Deepak Hooda, who did a good job up at the front as well. So, yeah, I must say kudos to Rahul, to Punjab for the decision. And I won't say it's out of the box. I think it's a good reading of conditions. They get there, they see what happens, they take note of what happened in the game before, and they're specific in the changes that they make and in the way that they look to play, and it came off.
And the words that he used, Shaun, were also to describe Chris Gayle. He said, we know his destructive batting, but today he brought the experience of playing a mountain of T20 cricket to the table.
100%, and that's what we touched on earlier. I mean, he held his nerve, and I think that's the key to the way they performed and the fact that they got over the line so comfortably. But I think some advice that we can give every single team, and they've heard it here on Cricbuzz Live, it's coming to you. Teach your batters.
Plus.
Yeah, okay, we can maybe do an article on the Cricbuzz Plus. But the best advice we can give all the teams is for the coaches to have a word with their batters and say to them, listen, guys, we really do want you to hit sixes, but can you just pop them over the rope? Because when they go into the stands and we get the new ball back, everything's starting to turn. Please, we want the same ball to be used for the whole 20 overs. So just little sixes, so we keep getting that same ball back. I mean, how many examples have we saw? We saw in Mumbai, we even saw Jadeja get the ball. All of a sudden, they gripped. Tonight, they got a new ball. It's gripped the whole way through the tournament. We've seen plenty of examples. So forget the 100-meter six. We just want the 77-meter one just over the rope and get that same ball back.
That is such a good observation, and I think it all got triggered by MS Dhoni's stump cam telling Jadeja, stump Mike, saying that, look, it's a drier ball, it's going to turn more. He was asked about it post-match as well. He said, well, that's the nature of it. If you're going to get a new ball back, it will behave differently. And for all of you out there, that's just a little bit of free advice you can get on Cricbuzz Live. If you want even more in-depth strategy, analysis, interviews, the place to go is Cricbuzz Plus, and you've got to subscribe to that, and it's going to be a lot of fun, I can promise you. Well, all of us have time for you to do so. What about our Joy Factor question? It's available right here on Cricbuzz Live. Many of you answered this, and today was a sitter. It was one of those balls that the answer to the person who's the answer to the question would have smashed out of the ground. You would have needed a new ball. No question of a 77-meter six. That would have been 110 meters. Joy, you gave us a real simple one. You can see the question. Third place, 33. Steve Smith, 41. Who was first? Very simple. The answer was Chris Gayle, 175 not out. Bangalore versus Pune on this very day. So the connection was Gayle playing today. The date today, 23rd April 2013, was that destructive innings by Gayle at the Chinnaswamy against a poor, hapless Pune Warriors side. Well, there you have it, 175. Many of you answered that. But who got on the button as fast as a Chris Gayle 6? Well, here it is. The answer is Bharat Reddy at the rate Bharat Reddy 2. And
he was ready to go.
Oh, he was ready to go. Well done, Shaun. You're in form today. Yeah, Bharat Reddy,
flying.
namesake of one of the great wicket keepers that India have had, Bharat Reddy. And Quick Rohit, by the way, was in second place, millisecond behind Bharat Reddy. So we haven't forgotten you.
I don't know if you should have told him that. Does he miss out? You told him he missed. Second sucks. Don't you know that?
Well, He gets a mention. He gets a mention for the 914th time on Cricbuzz Live. So well done, Crick Rohit. Anyway, that was a simple end to that. Well, there you have it, an upset. You have to call it an upset in a sense because it was the defending champions who were dethroned by a side who was kind of towards the bottom, and they've sneaked up just behind them. So well played to the men from Punjab. We'll see all of you on this very show as we look forward to the men in pink playing the men in purple. It's Kolkata against Rajasthan. Thank you, Pommie, all the best. Go well at the ground. Thank you, Shaun, Pollock. We shall see you very, very soon. And to all of you, thanks for watching Cricbuzz Live, brought to you in association with our fantasy partner, My 11 Circle.